Hey everybody, this is Vicky of Eternal Athena Tarot, and welcome to my second video on Tarot for Writers, how to use tarot in order to develop your creative writing projects. This is a series that I began when I embarked on the writing of my very first novel, and I thought this would be a great motivational tool for me to stay on task even though I don't have a regular chunk of time to work on this. I wanted to do this so that I could motivate myself to get through this writing process, which can take a lot of dedication. And also because I am a tarot reader, the idea of using the tarot cards to stimulate ideas and my imagination very much appealed to me. And I want to show you what I'm doing throughout this process and maybe you can take from that and use the tarot to develop your own creative writing projects. So with that, in the video I put out 2 weeks ago, I talked about how we can develop characters by simply pulling a single tarot card from our decks. And we can do this for our major characters like our protagonist, our antagonist, and foils, as well as minor stock characters. Today's video is going to build on that, and I'm actually going to show you a spread that I created called the Character Creation Spread that I used to help me flesh out the personality of my protagonist, Gwendolyn Greenfield. She is the star of my story, and that's basically the purpose of today's video. Before I show you the actual spread, I want to be transparent and show you the book that I have been using to help me along this process. And if you are a writer who's interested in using tarot to help you develop your own projects, I highly recommend Tarot for Writers by Corinne Kenner. And as far as today's video is concerned, this is the book that I got the spread positions that I am going to show you in a few moments. And for those of you who already have this book, if you turn to page 41 of this book, she has a bunch of characteristics and aspects of a character's personality that you can pull a card for. And I basically chose like 8 or 7 of these in order to develop my character. But as I'm going to talk about later on, this is a spread that works mainly for bigger characters like your protagonist. But if you want to create like a smaller character, like a stock character, that character does not have to be as multi-layered as your main character should be. So with that, I'm going to head on over to the reading table and show you step by step how I used this spread to flesh out the character of Gwendolyn Greenfield. So the character creation spread is comprised of 8 positions, and the first position is simply the essential card that I pulled 2 weeks ago for my character. Now, for those of you who watched the first video, you'll remember that when I talked about my main protagonist, Gwendolyn Greenfield, for her I pulled the Tower to describe who she is at essence. Now, by essential card, I mean this is the card that describes what a character's main function in a story is. And for Gwendolyn, we get the Tower. So this traditionally is a card that is about crisis moments, big explosive moments that fundamentally change how we see and view the world. And once the Tower moment happens, we can't go back to how things were before. So for this, I thought this was a pretty good fit for Gwendolyn. She is a detective of sorts, although technically she's a tarot reader. That's how she begins the story. But she finds herself implicated in a murder and needing to prove her innocence. And to do that, she's required to unearth information that is not readily apparent to everybody. So I thought this was a really good card to describe her. Being ruled by Pluto, Pluto is the planet of big transformation. In story number 1 in the book that I'm writing, this murder case is actually a huge event that happens in Gwendolyn's life, and it reveals to her what her true purpose in life is, which is to unearth hidden information, not only as a card reader, but as somebody who helps the LAPD solve crimes and helps them dig up information that they would otherwise not see. And also from this card, I got a few physical characteristics on what she might look like. I saw the flames. So I decided to give Gwendolyn some red hair, and also, you know, with this moment of crisis, she's someone who is pretty explosive, who maybe has a hot temper. I made her the I made her an Aries, actually, which is exactly what I am. And so she's someone who gets angry easily, but also once she gets angry, it passes over and she can forgive and forget. So that's card number one. The essential card is the card that basically describes the essence of your character and what this person is in your story to do. Position number two describes the character's free time. And I decided to include this in my spread because I think that how somebody spends their free time is pretty indicative of who they are as a person. What kind of hobbies they have and like what they like to do. Just, it's very much descriptive of that person's personality. For Gwendolyn, I got the Page of Swords. Now, traditionally, this is a card about learning new things, making yourself open to mentorship. It could also be about somebody who's a little bit naive and needs to learn how to perceive things, look beneath the surface. Because the Page of Swords, I think, is someone who, it takes some time, some experience to really understand what's going on in a situation. This is a card about perceiving. It's an air card. So in terms of how Gwendolyn spends her free time, the Page of Swords could suggest that maybe Gwendolyn enjoys reading books, to learn new ideas, taking classes, to develop herself, but she's always on the search for new information, which I thought was a key quality of somebody who is, in a detective story. And also she spends the remainder of the story looking for clues, and she does have to think outside the box, which I very much think the Page of Swords is all about. So I thought this was a really good card to describe how Gwendolyn spends her free time. Okay, position number 3 is goals. So goals basically describes what does our character want to do with his or her life. Like everybody has goals that they're working towards. So what is your protagonist's goal or your antagonist's goal? For Gwendolyn, I got the Eight of Swords. So the Eight of Swords is about seeing beyond the confines of our limited thinking, which I very much thought was a very good fit with the Page of Swords, which came right before. And one of the symbols that I'm always drawn to actually when I see this card is the blindfold that the woman wears. And this kind of describes a sense of not being able to see something, but having to, she can't really free herself until she does learn how to see things in a different way. So in terms of goals, her life work is reading tarot cards to give people an alternative point of view. And throughout the story, she pulls her own cards to give people an alternative point of view. But it's her role, very much in keeping with, the tarot card right here, to lift the blindfold and to see things different perspective. And sometimes that does involve getting rid of the false foundations on which we build our realities. So I thought that was a great choice for Gwendolyn. Oh, and by the way, all these cards I drew were drawn randomly, and you can either, depending on what you prefer to do, draw these cards randomly or pre-select them to help you develop an idea that you already have decided to run with. All right, position number 4 is greatest fears and shadows. Like basically, what is the darker side of our character? So for Gwendolyn, I got the Seven of Pentacles, and this is a card that's basically about looking back on what you've done so far. I kind of think of the Seven of Pentacles as when you have a 9-to-5 job, when they call you in once a year to review your performance, and you get to go over all your mistakes, but then also all over your strong points and your victories from the previous year to assess how to move forward and how things can be done better. So I kind of see Gwendolyn, since this is a card that describes her greatest fears, as someone who wants to make the most of life and does not want to look back on her life and have any regrets about what she did. And essentially this describes her purpose and the reason for her becoming a tarot reader was because she was unsatisfied in her previous job, and she did not want her legacy to be to amount to a career that didn't really have much meaning for her, and that's why she makes a switch. So her career goal is to look back on her life, or her biggest fear is to look back on her life and see something that she does not want to see or something that's unfulfilling to her. All right, position number 5 is gifts and talents that our protagonist has. And this is interesting because this was actually the card that I pulled for Gwendolyn's best friend. And this is a card traditionally that speaks to, the Five of Wands speaks to getting into arguments, competition. So in terms of what Gwendolyn's gifts and talents are, I kind of see her as someone who, as, a tower kind of person, probably has a knack for conflict, and she's not the quote-unquote nice girl who wants to be the people pleaser. She's someone who's not afraid to stir up shit in order to get to the truth, and that's kind of what I saw in this card. That's one of her gifts. So she likes to confront, which I think can be a very positive thing, and she's also someone who is very much about fair play. She wants to make sure things are fair for everybody. And one of the things I like about the Five of Wands, is that everyone here is fighting on equal playing ground, so that no one is advantaged or disadvantaged. Everyone has an equal shot at winning the prize. And I think that Gwendolyn is someone who very much cares about those types of values. Okay, card number 6, position number 6. This is the hope card. What are the hopes that Gwendolyn has for herself? So when I introduce her in the first chapter of the story, she is a newly established tarot reader, making a name for herself amongst a sea of psychics and divination artists in Los Angeles. So she's just building up her own private business, and it's a transformational moment for her, leaving a job that was not fulfilling. It's her goal to make this successful, and this is like the one thing that she has in life to be happy about, to invest her time in. So the Three of Pentacles is traditionally about working hard on something, and I also really liked having the Morgan Greer Tarot. Traditionally in the Rider-Waite-Smith, we see this card with 3 other people. There's usually the artisan, and there's the guy who's holding the plants, and there's the other guy who's kind of directing the other 2 people. This is about solo entrepreneurship. That's how I see this card. And I saw this person holding the hammer and the nail very much as Gwendolyn herself, carving out a name for herself, carving out a space for herself in this world where she feels like she doesn't fit, but she's carving out her own space. Position number 7. Okay, so this is the card that I call the distinction card, and this basically describes what makes a character stand out from the crowd, what makes this character special. And I think that it's really important to have like a defining trait or characteristic for a character to make them interesting so that we can remember them. And for Gwendolyn, the card I got for this was the Page of Rods, which was really interesting. So she's definitely been established as a fiery character, and she's someone who is willing to explore new places, go where no one has gone before. She's brave, she has a lot of courage, but she's also childlike in her naivete, perhaps assuming that maybe there's good in everybody. But as she comes closer to, this Tower card, she's someone who starts off by thinking, yeah, everyone's good, essentially. But what she realizes at the end of the story is that actually there's a lot more to people than what we see on the surface. So she begins the narrative kind of as someone who is young at heart, young and thinking, but she grows more and more wise the more information that she reveals. And I really love how this card dovetails with the Page of Swords. Again, 2 pages, both looking in the same direction. So these are 2 different aspects of Gwendolyn's character. Someone who remains open to new information, as well as someone who's willing to go and actually travel to these places and dig out information where no one else had previously considered. That's actually how she helps out the detectives of the LAPD who kind of think in these traditional ways. Gwendolyn is the person who shows them a new way of doing things. All right, and last but not least, position number 8 of my character creation spread is the Fatal Flaw. So what is a characteristic that Gwendolyn has that stands to bring her down if she's not careful about monitoring this? And for this, I got, the Knight of Cups. So another court card, and I see this card very much as being about lovers, actually. The Knight of Cups, all knights in tarot are about pursuit. All knights are about people who are in transition and who are looking for something, looking to become something. So this being of the Suit of Cups, the Knight of Cups is about the pursuit of the things that we love. And can also be about lovers in our life, like for instance, boyfriends, girlfriends, people who come at us looking for love. With respect to Gwendolyn's life, I kind of see her as someone who has maybe a weakness for men. She's still single in my story, and she's in the process of, she's out there on the dating market. So I kind of see her as someone who likes to meet different people, and she's, looking to find love in her life. But also, this card can be about, especially in the reverse position, the shadow side of the Knight of Cups, about deception. Because you think about all the things that, people say to you when they're trying to woo you, and all the flattery and things like that. So she's someone who tends to fall for these kinds of things, and as a result, she finds herself in these sticky situations. So this whole narrative is really, as we can see, about, Gwendolyn getting over her, her youthful side, revealing information, and, growing in her own wisdom as a character. So that is it, I think, for today's video. And once again, if you want to swap out these positions for a character that you're developing who's not a main character, for instance, if you are developing like a stock character, I think it's okay for a stock character to be somewhat relatively flat. We don't really need to know what their fatal flaw is. We don't really need to know perhaps what the greatest sphere of shadows are, but feel free to amend or maybe even create your own spread, for your characters. But for ideas on what positions to use, definitely reference Tarot for Writers by Corinne Kenner, and I'll put the link to that book below in the text box. So if you want to purchase that book, you can do so. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the next video, but I am going to be making another video on this Tarot for Writers series quite soon. So I hope that you will be joining me then. And with that, I bid you an adieu. Take care.